welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to be sharing something that God has been sharing with me for the past couple of weeks, and he's been downloading a lot of warfare that we've been going through. It just seems like we're getting kind of pushed into a corner, and he just wants to give insight of what's going on. Okay, so he kept giving me the number 711. It led me to look in the Strong's, and 711 in the Strong's Greek, it means best counselor. And in the Hebrew, it means purple, in which purple represents royalty. Okay, and so at first, I didn't quite understand, but then he showed me Daniel chapter 5, where he was giving good counsel. And it's like he was being compared with counsel from other gods. They had their astrologers, they had Chaldeans, they had all these different diviners that would advise a king. Now, if you know in the Bible, every good king knows and is wise enough to have a prophet of God, a good counselor, somebody that can interpret what God is trying to say. Okay, so if you know the story, you know that Nebuchadnezzar had the prophet Daniel, and through that whole time, Daniel had this reputation that he was a prophet of God, but it seems like it wasn't passed down. His son was not in any way interested in the things of God. He got his own, ideas. And so Daniel chapter 5 verse 7, it says, "And the king cried out loud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. The king spoke, saying to the wise men of Babylon, whoever reads this writing and tells me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck, and he shall be the third ruler in the kingdom." Now you see where the purple comes in. Okay, so for 711, both the Greek and the Hebrew is telling you this is the best counsel. This is counsel from hearing the word of God, from getting instructions from God, from getting revelation from God, right? And that's what this prophet did, the prophet Daniel. And another example that he showed me was Abraham and Lot. Abraham had taken Lot under his wing because his father had died. So he was his counselor. He had followed him along for all these years, and they both became rich. And then it got to a point where they had to separate. His workers were arguing with Abraham's workers, and he just said, hey, instead of us, fighting, or our people fighting, let's just separate. I'll let you have the first choice. He says, wherever you go, I'll go the other way. Now listen to this. Lot chose to go live in Sodom. He was a rich man with a family, and seeing how wicked it was, he chose to raise his family in Sodom. And we all know what happened when it came to the destruction that came to Sodom and Gomorrah. So it just shows how bad it trickled down from Lot to his wife, to his two daughters, and then their whole lineage was pretty much cursed. That's where, from the two daughters, they had Ammonites and they had the Moabites. And those we know are enemies to God's people, right? So it shows how Lot lost good counsel when he separated from Abraham. So then while God is showing me these things, all of a sudden, I see a vision. He shows me a vision of some headphones. And these headphones, I can tell that they are brand Bose. And it's almost like he had me zoom in on that brand name. So then I looked up the meaning of what Bose meant, okay? So it says Bose is usually something that archaeologists do. It's a technique that they use. And it says they strike the ground with an object in order to determine what lies underground, what lies underneath. right? So I took that and I started to study it. And what God was showing me was the things that God has been allowing his people to go through is actually for our benefit. And what he was showing was that lately, if you haven't noticed, the warfare that has been going on, it's been trying to take you backwards, right? And so what he was showing me was, he says, this whole past year or past couple years, he says, you've been going through a healing. My people have been going through a healing. And I like the example that, people use is the onion. When you heal or you go through a deliverance, it's done in layers. A lot of the times it's done in layers. And what he says was that part was done. But now he wants to deal with the core. He wants to deal with the root. And so he was showing me the example of, like, say for an archaeologist, they go and they start looking for fossils or, So what he showed me was, like, say a stone. And what the archaeologists will do is they'll go and tap it. They'll tap it all around with like a little tool, like a hammer. And they'll go based off what it sounds like. Some of it sounds real solid. And then maybe other parts might sound a little hollow. And then other rocks that might even have a little bit more of a crack in it. So the archaeologists know exactly, okay, hit here. This is how we can break it open. So when they hear the hollowness, they know something's inside. So then what God was showing me, he was saying, these situations that I'm allowing you to go through, he says, I'm allowing it to surface the things that were hidden from the past. Because I want you to see that those places still hurt you. They're still the root of it. And he wants to help you pull it out, right? Certain things that I have been going through, and it's like he'll show me something and it'll really upset me, and then he'll say, okay, this is that. The reason why it hurts you so much is because of this. And a lot of the times, when he would point out certain things, I would be like, ouch, like, okay, Lord, like, obviously these are still tender areas. These things still bother me. These still affect me. Okay. So what he was saying was, he was using this example because he was saying a lot of his people, they have gone through the process of healing and deliverance. But at the same time, he says, like the people of Egypt, when they were being led out of Egypt, a lot of them, even though they left slavery, they were still walking in bondage because of their mindsets. And if you notice, when Moses had led the people, God said only the people that were 20 years and younger could enter into the promised land. Why? Because their mindsets were not back in Egypt. And the number 20 means redemption. So what God is saying here is only the redeemed can enter into the promised land. So what he's saying is he's saying he's healing the inner wounds that were hidden for years. And he says he will allow it to resurface. He will allow certain places in you to be hit so that you can see the things that are still deep inside. The reason why a lot of his people have not been successful, they have not been prosperous, is because the mindset. So sorry, I've been having a lot of issues when it comes to in this video. But anyways, as I was saying, we go through all these years of living through pain and trauma. It's almost like we've learned how to self-soothe and find ways to kind of just to put a little band-aid on it and just toughen up. Maybe put on a front or use anger or turn yourself cold in ways to feel like you're healed. But that's just the lie of the enemy, because it still affects you. It still affects everything you do, every way you think, your perspective, your whole mindset. It just doesn't help us in any way. So what God is saying is that he's given us a way out of this. He's showing us that there's ways to do this. This process he's allowing us to go through is so that he can heal us and replace our old mindsets with new mindsets, which is a kingdom-like mindset. He wants to give you a new perspective, a new mindset. And in order for you to do that, and he was saying, when he points out something to you, when he's pointed out what those roots are, he says, don't feel like you do this on your own. He will grace you through it. He just needs your willingness. You know, he's moving at a fast pace. He wants to get these inner wounds healed so that you can move on to the next level. All you have to do is be willing. You know, there's some people that they grasp onto their past because they feel comfortable in it. They want to hold on to their pain. They want to hold on to their anger. They want to hold on to their perspective and their mindset. Those are like the people from Egypt. They refused to change their mindset. They did not want to go on to the next level. Even though they say they wanted to go on to the promised land, their mindset wasn't ready for it. It wouldn't have done them any good anyways. You can't grasp on to the blessing when your mindset is still in bondage, is still bound. He's saying you don't have to do this alone. He will get you through this. He will grace you through it. But you have to put your willingness in it. And the healing will take place faster than you know. And one thing he was saying that during this process, he says, be careful with the little foxes. You know, he gave me this example. You know, I was casually speaking to somebody that has known me forever. They know my backstory and everything. And they commented on something from the past. And they were saying, oh, poor you, you know, how you were treated. And, you know, for a second, it's like my emotions wanted to grasp it and wanted to feel sorry for myself. Even though what was done was wrong and was painful. But it's actually something that I have already moved on from. I had already made a decision to forgive and let go. And you got to be careful because these little foxes, they're just another way to, and look what they did to me and what they said about me. And God is saying you have to make up your mind. You're either ready for the new or you're not. Stop your progress. The enemy does not want to see you progress. He wants to make sure that you go backwards, that you fall back into that pit of sadness and depression and woe is me. You want to stay in the old mindset. He's preparing a way for the new. He says, you're no longer waiting on him. He's waiting on you. But everybody's asking, Lord, when? But he's saying, the door's already open. I have already prepared the way. I've already gone before you. He says, you're not waiting on me. I'm waiting on you. One thing that he was telling me was that this promised land, some people don't realize that the promised land is a higher level. Just like when people of Israel were being led into the promised land, there were still people in the promised land that they had to fight off. And this is obviously a higher level. So God was saying, you have to be healed. The enemy knows your soft spots. That's why even though it's painful to wait, he wants you to be prepared. He wants you to be established before he allows you to enter into the promised land. He says you cannot enjoy the blessing nor handle the next level spiritually without healing first. Whatever's in the promised land, he says marriage, money, career, etc. It isn't the answer. You're looking forward to, it's not going to fulfill you. Only God can fulfill you. It's like rich people that have everything but don't have God. You know, he gave me this example of a gold cage concept. How can you enjoy your blessings if you're still living in bondage in your mindset? You won't even be able to steward what you're given. It's like when a parent saves up all this money, has a choice to give it to a child that has not matured. God is a good father, and he wants to make sure that you know how to steward your blessings. You have to have a mature kingdom mindset in order to handle all these things. Another example that he was saying, he was showing me a ram. Now, a ram is a mature male sheep. And he was showing me the comparison when it comes to the rams and the goats. Rams, they represent the obedient, and the goats are the disobedient. If you ever watch a video on how shepherds, when they have a flock, they say the goats are the ones that they have to struggle with because they're stubborn. But the sheep, especially the mature sheep, they're the most obedient ones. God was highlighting the differences in their horns. If you notice a ram, the horns, the more mature, it seems like the more it spirals right there by the ear. It reminded me of the headphones. He was saying the mature male sheep, they're the ones that obey the voice of God. But if you notice the billy goat, the goat's horns, they kind of go up away from the ear. And God was reminding me of that scripture. It's in Revelation 3:22. Call that the people of God would do to get everybody together. They would use the ram's horn. And whoever could hear, whoever had ears to hear, they will come. That was one thing that he was saying. He was saying, in order for this process to work for you, he says, you have to be connected. You have to stay connected to him. You have to be alert when he's trying to speak to you, when he's trying to point things out to you, when he's trying to give you signs of certain instructions that he's trying to give to you, to ready you for the next step that he's taking you. And lastly, what he was saying to me, he was saying, warn the therapists, those who are therapists. He says, be careful of the counsel that you give. And also he was saying to the people that do take therapy, he says, be careful that you are choosing a therapist that has the right doctrine, that is a Christian, that is a godly person, because if their doctrine is off, they're going to go based off of what they are taught or trained to say to you. Make sure that they are Christians, that they are God-fearing people. So again, remember, all this that God is allowing you to go through is to create in you a mindset, a new mindset and a new perspective. He's going to help you. He's going to make a way for you. He's going to grace you through this period to get you to where you need to be. So with this, I pray that it blessed you. If you have any comments, leave it down below. Until the next video. God bless.